Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another podcast episode. My name is Alicia Gogan, the host of the Globe Secrets podcast, where I help you expand your mind and become more self-aware so that you can glow up into the best version of yourself. Hello, happy Monday. I hope we are doing fantastic. And if you're not, then it's fine because you have this episode. So I don't really know what this episode is going to be titled, but something along the lines of who you identify as, what you let live rent-free in your mind, and what you focus on will grow. Okay, so we need to talk about 3 mental habits that you need to drop today, which correlate with the 3 things that I just listed. Okay, I feel like we have all in somehow, shape, or form have realized that we've been carrying around limiting beliefs that probably no longer serve us. Quite frankly, for me, every season of my life, I see something that I'm like within myself or my mind where I'm like, I could probably be thinking a little bit better about this thing. And especially when it's time to really call into something in your life, or call something in your life, I should say, it is going to require you to think differently. And that's usually when we find that we have a lot of negative limiting beliefs and negative self-talk, is when we are trying to do something new, or we're just trying to get become the best version of ourselves, essentially, or manifest things in our lives or whatever. It does require us to think good thoughts. And sometimes as soon as we, want to show up for ourselves or call something in, it's almost like we instantly have like all of the worst negative self-talk. We have imposing limiting beliefs all freaking everywhere. So I wanted to talk about 3 habits that I just want you to really think about and really just become aware of dropping this, and understanding that these 3 things that I'm going to be talking about in many ways are like a lot of the times the reasons why you are not getting, or you're not enjoying life or getting things in your life. And we don't have to go on this blame game of blaming ourselves for every little single thing, or demonizing the fact that we have, identified as this person, or we think about this in the wrong way, or this, that. You guys know I'm all about really just embracing life, embracing yourself. You don't have to be perfect, but it does definitely come to a point where you kind of have to, move out of this victim mentality in a way, and just decide that you get to have a good life. So let's talk about the 3 things that can help you technically have a better life, think differently, just be a better you. So the first mental habit that you need to drop is identifying with bad habits / versions of you that you don't want to be experiencing anymore. And we do this so often. I do this myself. We always identify as somebody. We identify as a million things all the time. We identify as somebody who goes to the gym regularly or doesn't. We identify as being a student, being a wife, being a mom, being single, being this, being that. We do that all the time. It's not even about like, oh, just take it all away. But understand that the more that you identify as somebody who does something, you will fall in line. Your actions, your thoughts, your behaviors, your focus, your everything will fall in line. The same way we continuously focus on the negative things until they become true in our lives, we can do the opposite. But that first requires us to stop identifying as somebody who is limiting. Now, I find we talk to ourselves negatively if we maybe did something wrong once or twice in our life, but we use that as like name calling and telling ourselves that now we are that person that made a mistake or makes mistakes or doesn't follow through, this, that. It's not to say that maybe once in your life you made a mistake or somebody said something bad to you or whatever, but we need to stop taking those things that are limiting as truth and then walk through life like maybe you used to be somebody who struggled with taking care of themselves, and maybe you still do, but like at one point, but you still are carrying this identity as somebody who just can't ever seem to get it together or can't ever whatever, based off of the first time that ever happened. It's not to, again, like I just said, ignore that maybe things have happened in your life, but just seeing how the more you call somebody something, even if it's not fully true, they will start to believe it. And this happens to children. I mean, if you think about, how does a child learn its name? A child learns its name through people calling it its name. Now, they could be calling it something that is completely not actually the truth of who this child is, but it's going to believe it. And that's what happens with our subconscious minds. They hold on to whatever it is that you tell yourself about the world, about yourself, about how things are going to be and like, pan out in your life. Seriously, your subconscious mind is always listening, and your subconscious mind is also running on autopilot based off of all of the stories and all the names that you've ever called yourself, identified as, focused on. And for many reasons, that's what happened in your life. You can go back and you can dig it up and you can figure it out and you can whatever. I talk about it in my book. Like, I think sometimes it's helpful to kind of see, okay, well, why do I say that I hate myself, or why do I identify as this person, or why am I calling myself this name, getting to the root of that, because there's always a root, and it's always never your truth. But at the end of the day, you have to understand that the more times that you call yourself something, even if it was true in one moment, you will continue to live that out in your life. And we need to release ourselves from the shackles of these limiting beliefs, because we're just never going to get anywhere. It does not serve us. And quite frankly, even if you are going through something right now and you are the person that you're basically saying you are, in order for you to change that, it's going to be very helpful for you to stop telling yourself that you are lazy, that you are broke, that you are this, that, and the third. And I think that, like, sometimes you're smart. Like, we're smart and we're like, well, this is the truth. I am being lazy. I am not taking care of myself. I did lie to this person. I'm not this person, X, Y, and Z. But that's not going to help you become a better version of you. This self-hate, this tearing yourself down. Because what happens is you assume a story about yourself. So sometimes you don't even try. You're like, why would I even try when I'm somebody who just is lazy anyways, or I can't figure it out, this, that. When I was in high school, I was told all of my elementary into high school that I was not really smart. I got pulled out of class to go get extra help. I'm not even complaining about that. Like, it's helpful for some kids, but all my entire identity was, I'm not smart. I can't speak out loud. I am not as fast as like learning as other kids, like all of these things. And I really dwelled in that identity. And that really, like, I was so young. I didn't have a part of me that just said, no, you're not slow. You just need a second to do the math equation. You're fine. You're not dumb. You don't need to be exactly like everyone else. Whatever the case was, I didn't have that voice of reason. I didn't have that critical thinking skill within my mind. And now, obviously, when you're a child, hopefully your parents would be reminding you of that, or people around you. But even if your parents are the best parents and they have the best intentions for you, life happens, okay? But understand that, there's a lot of things that have been impressed on your subconscious mind that you've taken on truth, but it's not your truth anymore. And thankfully for me, I know I'm going on a freaking rant. I haven't even got into it, but thankfully for me, my mom would always tell me, like, she would always try and reinforce within me that I can learn. Maybe I just need a little bit of extra time. No problem. I can learn this, that. You will get past it. You will get through this. It's kind of like a phase. Like, she did the best that she could to tell me. And I think that kind of helped me a little bit have hope that I'd be able to, change at one point. But I got to a point in high school where I was like, you know what? I am so sick and tired of looking at myself as somebody who can't do school or can't study or can't whatever. Like there's got to be something that I could apply myself and actually try and see. But I started to correlate the fact that I was living an identity of I'm not smart, so then I wouldn't try. Okay, so it's on one hand, like, yes, I had that identity basically given to me. Maybe I started to believe it, whatever, things like that, whatever happened. But then I used that identity to keep me down more. And I wasn't trying. I wasn't putting in effort. I wasn't doing these things. So it's important to tell yourself in the moments, even if you're currently struggling with something, you don't need to berate yourself because you won't really try, is what I'm saying. And when I decided I wanted to apply myself in grade 11 into 12, because, well, one, we had to graduate and go to college, I was like, no, I actually was going to say I was a decent, like a kid in school when it came to grading. I wasn't. I got like all D's. I got like all D's and I got some R's. Is F's a thing? I don't know. The highest, no, but then this is what I'm going to say. 11 and 12 come around and I started to realize, no, if I apply myself and if I just try, let me just glow up. Let me do what I got to do. Let me study. Let me romanticize the process. Whatever it is, let me have a goal for myself. And I applied myself. I was like, damn, like I know what I'm doing. And I kept telling myself that though. Like I told myself, I'm smart. I can do this. Studying can be easy. I'm going to get this. I don't care. And I started getting better grades. And then I had this identity now of I'm good at English. I'm good at business. I'm good at marketing. I'm good at nutrition. I'm good at even math. I actually know how to do math. If I were to sit down and really be taught an equation, I have the focus and I can do it. Even though I barely even knew how to do it, at the time. And honestly, I don't like math really at all, but like still. And I had the best grades leaving high school because I changed the entire identity that I was living in. Okay. So bringing it back to the first habit, enough with identifying with your bad habits. So maybe you're telling yourself right now, I'm bad at creating routines. I suck at showing up for myself. I'm bad at managing time. I always attract emotionally unavailable men, or men are all this or that. Enough with the story. Even if that was your truth, whatever you focus on and continue to call into your life will be normalized. Okay? So I'm only assuming you don't want to be somebody who's bad at routines or who only attracts men who don't want to commit. So if that's the case, we need to stop living out that story by first not thinking about it so much. And I know it can be difficult to do that, but dropping your awareness and no longer calling yourself the person who X is so important. So think about something that you're currently identifying with or as. Say you are somebody who I always fall off of my goals. I always hear that in the comment section. I always fall off. Okay. For a week, when you tell yourself, when you witness, when you're saying, I always fall off, I want you to pick a new identity that you want to be living in, like a belief system. And I want you to tell yourself that every single time you tell yourself, I am somebody who always falls off. Now, the affirmation, which is just a favorable thought. People think that affirmations is a technique. It's not a technique. It's thinking in your favor. It's thinking positively. It's thinking good. You got to do that for the rest of your life. Okay. So like, it's not this like little thing that you just drop. You're always thinking. So make it obviously something that is a little bit more believable for you. And it's not that you have to believe it, but the thing is if you believe it and it feels good to you, you'll be more prone to want to say it more, and you need to say it more in order for that to be your dominant neural pathway in your brain. So instead of saying, I'm somebody who always falls off my goals, you could say something like, I am somebody who is always trying. And that might not feel like, oh, well, I'm not identifying as somebody who hits all their goals. Okay, well, maybe you trying to do that, you're going to have a lot of resistance if you say, I'm somebody who always hits their goals. You can do that, by the way. But if that doesn't feel right to you, you could be, instead of like making it this entire complete switch of states that you just can't seem to like believe because you've been this person for so long, switch one or two words from the thing that you're telling yourself. I am somebody who always tries. I always try. I always get back up. I promise you, it's going to get you a lot farther than you thinking unfavorably. Even when it came to I won't go too much in detail, but because I talk about this a lot in my book, actually, a lot in my book. When I had an unhealthy relationship with food, I obsessed over food. I obsessed over my body image, all of this stuff. Obviously, it just spiraled me more into cycles. And then I started living out this for years of this person who doesn't have a good relationship with food and this, that. And even now I identify as somebody who had a unhealthy relationship with food, which doesn't affect me. So I don't mind saying that, but it's very much so like I used to. I'm not that anymore. And it's not about othering myself and putting that down if somebody has that, but it's just for me right now, I'm just like, yes, I have moved on from it. I can move on from things, I guess is what I'm saying. But one thing that really helped me be able to heal my chronic illness, but also unhealthy relationship with food, a lot of things in my life, was no longer identifying with the story of I am sick, I don't know how I'm going to get out of this is an endless cycle, I can't do it. Did that mean it changed overnight? Did it mean I woke up every single day like ready to not binge eat, or like I didn't feel my chronic pain, just because I said that? No, but it really helped me have a clear mind and a more positive mind to be able to continue to move forward and heal. Okay. When I switched my mindset from being somebody who I don't know when I'm going to get out of hand pain, it's never going to go away, I have no idea, my future is ruined, I can't get out, this, that, to yes, my hands are killing me right now. I had nerve pain in my hands for 2 years, by the way. It was psychosomatic pain. Talk about it in my book. But yes, my hands hurt right now. But you know what? I am going to control what I can right now, which is I'm going to think positively. I'm going to tell myself every single day, there's going to be a day that I find an answer. There's going to be a day that I find an answer, and I'm going to do what I can right now, which at that point, it was just taking care of myself. I couldn't work out. So instead of crying about the fact that I couldn't work out, I found an alternative way to move my body and still get outside and be healthy as much as I could, which was to go on hour-long walks and listen to podcasts and all of these things. Like there was ways that I was still able to stay positive. Even when I had really bad flare-ups with my ulcerative colitis, I was still being positive. I was still like searching for information that was just telling me that I can do it. And lo and behold, when I was on a routine, I was listening to podcasts more because I was in a positive mind. I wasn't wasting my day on Netflix because I was like, oh, well, I don't know when I'm going to get better, so I might as well just not. No, I did the best that I can. I was learning a bunch of stuff, but on that pursuit, I found it was a psychotherapist, but she specializes in chronic pain and she talks a lot about the mind-body connection. Anyways, she led me to another girl who talked about emotionally releasing and psychosomatic pain and chronic pain and the mental, I was going to say mental health benefits. There's no benefits from chronic illness, but the mental and emotional and physical biopsychosocial connection of everything, and how, when your body's in pain, there's other things that are happening and it's not just whatever. I talk about it in my book. Anyways, I found that and I was able to heal myself because of my mindset switched. I no longer identified as somebody who couldn't. So that is a habit you have to break if you really want to change your life or just feel better in your days. And quickly before we move on, there is a difference between completely just suppressing and pretending your feelings or pretending bad things are like even existing, and like acknowledging but deciding not to feed into it in a way. Feed in kind of sounds bad because it sounds like you don't want to feed into your inner child who might be like crying, like in that sense, but it's not really like that. And only you are going to really be able to know. And, maybe you get extra help with that, but, it's not about ignoring the realities of life. You can still think positively and do your best while acknowledging, yes, there's this going on in my life or the world or whatever. You're not a bad person for doing that, but you don't have to engulf your entire life, your mind, your energy, your emotions, your everything all the time to this thing that is obviously distressing you. You have a lot more power than you think. The next mental habit that you need to drop today, and listen, this is all a practice, okay? But I just want to bring this to your awareness today, is negotiating with yourself. So this could be negotiating yourself out of things, but it doesn't even really matter what you're trying to get yourself to do. You know that mental chatter that you have when you go back and forth about something, you know, when you're sitting there and you're spiraling about a certain decision or when you should do something at what time. It could be like mundane tasks. Like for me, sometimes I'll be getting in my head going back and forth of like, oh, when should I do my podcast? When should I do my hair? When should I do this? And then it gets to the point where I'm recognizing that I'm like thinking way too much in my head and I'm like wasting a bunch of brain power and I just don't need to be doing that. Like I treat that as like negotiating because I'm just going back and forth and just it's really annoying, and we don't need to do that. As somebody who wants to identify as like, you know, being somebody who is certain and decides in her life, that type of person does not continuously negotiate things all the time in their mind. So when you find that you are, like I said, going back and forth, or you're finding another video to watch or another video or another thing or asking more questions or this, that, trying to figure it out, trying to search for the answer, enough. Stop yourself in the moment and say, I need to decide. You're going to pick A or B, okay? There is always going to be C, D, E, F, G, many thousand other ways of thinking about things, many different other techniques, more books to read, more content to consume, more things to creep or stalk or whatever, or overthink. Trust me, you will go to the end of time if you don't step in and say, we are not somebody who negotiates. And I think you just need to understand that negotiating yourself, whether it's out of things or just overthinking and ruminating, it's not gonna get you the outcome that you think. And the better outcome is whatever you actually decide. So when I notice myself doing that behavior, I like to really speak out into existence. Like, I mean, I'm always usually by myself, but I'll say out loud, you're making it too difficult. Decide. Like, that's like an affirmation that I use. Again, you can say something different depending on who you are, but I will say, you're making it way too difficult. Way too difficult. It does not need to be this difficult. Decide. And one quick thing before moving on from this is, this is the thing that you have to like really stand firm in, which I think a lot of people don't. And this is why they continue to keep negotiating, is when you decide that that is the right decision. You don't go back and forth and decide and then 3 seconds later second guess that decision. Tell yourself, when you decide, whatever you decide is right. We're not going back. We're not second guessing. We're not whatever. We're done. Now, the last mental habit that you need to drop is dropping the awareness of the things that you don't want in your life. And this is probably where the work starts and is the most work and will probably freaking end here, is understanding. Well, you know what? Actually, let me do a little disclaimer. I believe that our thoughts create. I believe that I'm the creator of my reality. I really believe that. Some people don't believe that. So I just wanted to disclaim that. And am I somebody who looks at me, I like hyper focus on, oh my God, I created this thing and that thing and and everything? No, I don't overwhelm myself. But for the most part, I create a lot in my life. I have. It's been my experience. That's just what it is. So that's how I move through the world. And I think a lot of you guys could agree that, you know, the more you think of something, it comes into fruition. It really just does, even if you don't want it. So if we want, I have kind of already said this, but if we want something better in our lives, we're going to need to focus on that versus all the awareness and the attention that we continue to put on things that we don't want in our lives. And I always think about this with my relationship with money. I've had a very lengthy, long relationship with money. And when I was in my early 20s, I only ever focused on the fact that I didn't have money, and I was stressing about it all the time. And I would create and call in more things and more stress and more lack, I should say. I hate sometimes using the word lack because everyone's like, oh, don't use the word lack, this, that, whatever. It's just like a blanket word or term. But I used to always think about the things that I didn't want happening. And this is out of a place of love for this part of myself, and you should have that for yourself too. Obviously, that part of me was trying to keep myself safe, but it did not understand that actually, because I believe my thoughts and my focus will create that thinking about things that weren't going right, thinking about those things were not actually going to get me the result that I thought that it was going to get me. I was focusing on these things, the negative things, because I was trying to keep myself safe. I thought that if I focus on them, then I would have more control and that I would like know what was going on, or like I would like that helped me ensure safety in some ways, whether I knew it or not. That's what you're doing when you're always focusing on something. But it's a false sense of control, really. And I think you start to see that when you really get into it. It's like, wait, but no matter what, focusing on things I don't have, even if you don't think your thoughts create, that creates more stress. It creates this level of unease. It makes you out of the present. So again, it's not about completely ignoring your reality, but it's like, what is it really serving you to continue to think about the thing? Okay, we know we're broke. Okay, we don't have money. Okay, we hate our job. But why are we creating more suffering by continuously focusing on it? It's like we say we hate this book, this one book, we can't look away. We got to keep reading it. We got to keep reading it, because we need to know, okay? You know the feeling. It doesn't feel good. We are addicted sometimes to feeling like crap. And sometimes we do that because we're actually trying to, have some control in our lives, but understanding, at least I did throughout my years, that that's a false sense of control. And what I can control is where my thoughts and my awareness goes. And because I believe And because I believe my thoughts create, just as much as I stressed about a certain situation that created more of it, I can do the opposite. So I can think favorably, and I can think better thoughts, and I can think about my goals and my aspirations and have better conversations, and that's going to create. So let me do that. Even if I don't believe my thoughts create, what's the alternative? To live every single day reminding myself of something I already know. Trust me, you're not going to forget it. We know when we're heartbroken. We know we don't have money in the bank. You don't need to continue to affirm it. So, mental habit, dropping the awareness. How do you drop the awareness? This is the reason why I said this is like the biggest chunk of the work I feel like we kind of have to do sometimes. Not trying to say it's hard, is because we have so much awareness on things all the time. And you might know that, you might not, but once you start becoming aware, you'll realize just how many times you think about things that are just not favorable. So I like to really try, when I'm trying to change my mindset around something, whether it's myself or something that's not favorable, I choose a new affirmation that I'm going to tell myself in the moment when that unfavorable thought comes up naturally. So instead of being like, oh, I'm lazy, or oh, I'm broke, okay, what did I say? I don't even remember what I said. Basically, or I'm somebody who always tries, or things will always work out, or I'm on the road to creating more money or financial stability in my life, things like that, whatever I need to say, I will kind of have that go-to affirmation. And it's good to kind of focus on one thing at a time, especially if you have never really done this. So depending on what you want to change, the way that you think about it. But having that one affirmation and just kind of saying that anytime that you do become aware of those thoughts. But and it's going to be so dependent on you. But what I do is in the morning, I have a journal practice of either it's gratitude, or I'm focusing on my goals, like more positive focus. I'm scripting out a visualization, that I see in my head that I know will be true, that I believe in, that I see myself living out. I am statements. I am beginning to become the version of me who has everything that they want. I am this amazing YouTuber. I am this great podcaster, whatever it is, whatever I got to tell myself, which it's not even about, oh, just tell yourself whatever you can to get through. It's like, no, these are truth. These are truth. Okay. These things are truth, I should say. And even if they're not true yet, they can be. So always reminding yourself of that. And I do a lot of, I talk about this, I talked about this last episode, mental diet, enough with triggering yourself, of like reminders of thinking the old way. I always think about this when I don't do this to myself ever. Like, well, I guess that's a lie. I used to probably do a little bit of this behavior when I was in my early 20s, or like 18, 19, 20, 21, where let's say I was like obsessed with a guy, and maybe this would have been, maybe let's say he was either pulling away, or we had broken up, or things were feeling uneasy, or there's like, it was a situationship type of thing. I would do behaviors like checking to see if they liked my photo, or like watched my story, or who they were following, or what they were doing. But that would then just make me like, doing those behaviors and going on Instagram and being so bombarded with them just reminded me of the old story that I was trying to stop. So if you want to not think bad thoughts or crappy things, you kind of have to see where you spend the most time and energy, and put your awareness, and kind of like like have some boundaries, I guess. Like, get off of Instagram if you're that type of person who does that, and please stop doing that. Like, I am so sorry. Stop checking to see if people are watching your stuff. Stop checking this man's following. Stop thinking about these people doing things that you don't want them to be doing. Enough. Seriously, it does nothing for you. It does nothing for you. You finding out any information will all just be crappy anyways. And even if you don't find anything, you're still gonna feel like shit. So stop focusing on that type of stuff. So that if that means, yes, you have to mute that person, you have to block that person, you have to get off social media, or you have to stop watching videos that are reminding you of the thing that you're trying to not think about. If you have to switch up your routine for a little bit, get out of your own way, stop listening to whatever it is. You really want to take that action and cut it out for a moment in time. I always say, when I used to want to work on my body image and the way that I viewed myself, I stopped moving around crowds where all the focus was always on body image. I stopped going on Instagram even, and scrolling on Tumblr so much, because that would trigger me. I stopped doing it. And also, this is a very common one. We all do it. You don't have to be perfect, but really try to stop complaining. And I don't know, I think sometimes it's so automatic that we don't give ourselves a second to switch that, but try your best to, when you're about to say something, let's say to a friend or out loud, or even to yourself, like, can you choose something else? Can you just hold back for a second? Like, we don't need to complain about every single thing all the time. Even if it's not anything about your life, you just don't need to always be saying something, and that is like, honestly, that message is going right to me too. I'm right here with every single thing that I'm saying. And some things that do help me, like, it's not just about putting up these boundaries so you can just not think negatively, but genuinely, like, having a vision board, doing things that you enjoy in your life, focusing on your goals. Like, do the things that make you happy, and it will help you drop the awareness of the things that you don't want. It's not just about putting yourself in this jail cell, obviously, because then you're just going to continue to focus on these things. But I think that jumping into an optimistic creator mindset, which, I don't know, and focusing on self-concept really helps me in the times where I'm thinking crappy thoughts. Just reminding myself of my worth, how amazing I am, what I'm going to accomplish, what I want to do this spring, this summer, what I'm going to be doing with my friends, just all that stuff. But what I'll say is, it has to be saturating your mind. This is all saturation. I talked about this in last week's episode, so definitely go check that out if you want to hear more about that. But you really gotta saturate your mind, because what you will find is you'll go back to the old way of thinking. Because understand this, you have a neural pathway in your brain that's been built off of years and 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 years of you naturally telling yourself you're not good enough. So it's not going to take years and years and years and years and years for you to think better about yourself, because you're doing it consciously, but it's going to take a second. Okay? And at the end of the day, You deserve to feel good. And something I always say is when I find myself not thinking favorably, whether it's about myself or life, I always just remind myself it's not my truth. It's not my truth to tell myself that I am crappy, lazy, not smart, not educated, whatever it is. It's also not my nature and not my truth to be moving through the world thinking that everything is bad and wrong and I'm not going to get what I want. Doesn't make sense to me. Like, it doesn't really make sense to my logical mind, which is, my logical mind is a hard thing to convince differently because my logical mind still holds on to things such as limiting beliefs. But that is one thing that my logical mind can get on board with is, okay, if we just cut the bullshit for a second, go past all these limiting beliefs. Is this really your truth? Like, you're telling me you came here to be somebody who checks on Instagram whether a guy is going to like you or not today? You really came here to only be happy if he texts you? You really came here just to tell yourself that you're fat, you're ugly, you're gross, you're not going to get what you want, you're broke, you're this, you're that? No. You will not convince me. So I need you to be obsessed with thinking in your favor, is what I'm trying to say. So with that being said, I'm going to be filming another episode after this, actually, where it's all of your guys's limiting beliefs. I had asked you guys on Instagram, give me some of your limiting beliefs that you're currently struggling with that you want to change, just things that are just very, all to do with this topic. And I got a lot of them. So I want to record an episode where I don't know, I think I'll call it something like, let's dissolve some of your limiting beliefs. And I want to give you guys advice and just like maybe different ways to think about it or how I would if I had that limiting belief. And obviously it's just going to be advice. So that's the episode that I'm going to be filming next. So definitely make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel if you aren't yet. And of course, if you're listening on Spotify, Apple, just make sure that you're following. You can actually follow my podcast. There should be like a little follow button somewhere. And get ready for another episode. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.